the status of each and every one of us is very important, because as they say, and this is now again, as they say, in the last moment, in that final moment, every drop tips the balance. If there is this giant, cosmic, invisible, whatever scale, every soul, whatever worth it has, whatever weight it has value. So this is where it kind of world balances itself out, right? How many sinners in that city? No. How many righteous ones in that city? Will you spare? No. This is a bargain, see? One way or another, we are better off, simply better off, in our own clear consciousness, to meet this all in our highest capacity. And if we are able to do that, and how can we do that? We can only do that if we are in the capacity to hold these conflicting worlds within ourselves, which all of us are made of. That's pretty much what really metaphysical job is. Sadhana is that. That what supports is that. We are kind of in a threshold of the actuality of how current planetary unfoldment sets the tone for the next cycles, which our Sangha knows about it because I've been sharing about it since beginning of the year, since the move of Saturn into Pisces, and we use Saturn astrology, not tropical one. So it is a Jyotish, Vedic astrology. So it doesn't coincide with the zodiac-based one. So therefore, in the tropical zodiac, the Saturn now moved earlier this year into Aries. See? In Vedic astrology, it's not. In Vedic astrology, it moved into Pisces, and it's a big difference. Not about astrology. Astrology is not about planets either. It's about how the planets here simply highlight the trajectory of our soul as it navigates its cosmic realm in the realm of embodiment. Let's put it this way. And where does it navigate itself? Where is it traveling? Well, it's obviously traveling there. Traveling there in where, how, where, what. Everything traveling in space-time only in relation to light and sound, because that's what space-time is. So therefore it is known as the science of light, Jyotish, Jyotir. So it's the science of light, and human soul is a spark of divine consciousness, which, effectively speaking, here, meagers, we could say that, in a certain kind of, let's say, in between realms of incarnating, reincarnating, maybe you don't believe in incarnation, doesn't matter, until it finds itself to what it actually is. That's the leitmotif of a lot of more ancient spiritual perspectives. Today things are a compote, a mixture, flux, fusion, smoothie of everything. Everything is just kind of attempt to infuse it all and make it compatible and palatable to a modern way of life, and how that fits into our agendas, into our this and that. We do our best to separate wheat from chaff, but it's not that easy. And not that easy at all. Because this being here right now, being in the human body, and being human is not something that we can say, that's, I'll transcend it and I'll be somewhere else. It doesn't work like that. Never did with anyone. So therefore, certain beans need to be spilled very clearly, directly. So therefore, like, where are we? Who am I? So what do I do? How do I? There's a lot of variables, a lot of like ways to go somewhere. How do I plan? How do I navigate? What I want to point out here, simply as a reminder, that something already navigating it all, already, completely and utterly, with precision that is mind-boggling. And this is the department of Vedic astrology. So the good news, along with the challenges, is this, in a nutshell, is that we have now two major cycles. Okay? Saturn earlier this year moved into Pisces in February for 3.5 period of time. So by the time Saturn will leave Pisces in 2028, dates I don't remember, maybe 25th, something 23rd, 25th, we will all collectively enter into the next 30-year cycle, which starts always with Aries. In both Vedic and tropical, it's the same. Cycle starts in Aries, cycle completes itself in Pisces. In Aries, we articulate ourselves, we thrust forward. In Pisces, we are dissolved in the cosmic waters of creation. And every sign then it corresponds to what are the aspects within that journey highlights whilst I'm alive and experiencing this life for what it is. Down from what beverage I drink in the morning, what have I for breakfast, to what the flavor I experience, let's say in the last 5 years. What is it like? Is it sour? Is it sweet? Is it bitter? Is it mixture? Or mostly bitter? Or mostly sour? Or mostly salty? When all that sweat and tears will finally be off me? It is for you to understand this and for you to correlate to your life. But what I'm saying, opportunity is given now for those of us who can lift ourselves up just a little, just a notch, and see the bigger picture. So as to then, when it's like by the pull of gravity, yes, have to still deal with here and now, it doesn't feel so daunting anymore. Second cycle is marked by the position of the north and south lunar nodes, where the eclipses take place. Those of you not familiar entirely with Vedic astrology, let alone Vedic mythology, Vedic lore, or Vedic science, properly more speaking. The north and south nodes here represent places of the eclipses, symbolically spoken of in terms of these creatures, Rahu and Ketu. They are treated as planets, although they are not planets per se. They're not planets like Jupiter or Saturn. They are simply nodal points in skies, where at certain point in time, the combination of movement of the planets, in this case, Sun, Moon, and Earth, will align itself in such a way where the eclipses will take place. So that's why they spoken of as north and south. Rahu and Ketu. Rahu, it's your desire to what you want, and Ketu is your memory to where you came from. Rahu is all your ambitions, ideas, aspirations, everything. It's never now, always future. And Ketu is never now either, it's always past. Past life, past experience, past relationship, past baggage, past. See? The best to know the real future and the real past, so as not to be caught in the nitty-gritty. See? It's best to have a big cosmic picture. Cosmic picture has that quality, is that it still feels, okay, I'm bound by my desires, but at least I know really what I'm desiring here at a cosmic level. And I know what memory I carry. I know what my past in the grand scheme of things, rather than just, past like my ex or what have you. You got the drift. So this now is measured by 18 years, because that's how long it takes for Rahu-Ketu axis to shift. And it shifts every 18 years only, with subcycle each 9 years. Because at some point, Rahu-Ketu, after 9 years, would be flipped, and it will be Ketu-Rahu in exact position where each respectively have been sitting, because then it will make a full cycle. And that cycle lasts 18 years. All astrologers, without exception, know that. These are the most important cycles. Everything else is the entourage, the fireworks, the garlands, the decorations, the incense, the offerings, the this, including the gods, demigods, marriages, divorces, and everything in between. The real deal are these cycles. Why? Reflect on this. Saturn keeps the karma, keeps the overall score of things, everything. It's like in a way, a Christian or Abrahamic God. Let's just kind of do it in a very, very simple, accessible manner. Saturn here is a Christian God who knows all your sins and all your glories and all your virtues. So he keeps the score, greatest accountant of them all. In fact, Saturn rules accounting, rules as a planet, rules structures, rigidity, all places of confinement, all places where people gathered against their will, waiting rooms, hospital rooms, courtrooms, prisons, list goes on, all in the domain of Saturn. Saturn is where your freedom of to move out and where I go, sky's the limit. Uber, no, none of this. You go here and now, stay as long as I say, do it. That's Saturn. Saturn in Pisces is different, because Saturn in Pisces softens its gaze. Why? Because he already shows everything that needs to be shown. Here, soul is released into these waters where it can experience itself for what it is, for the first time maybe. So people who have never been spiritual ever in their life, never shown inclinations, are given the choice within the 3.5 years. And you will see this, how people who have never shown any iota of interest in anything remotely metaphysical, spiritual, will suddenly start asking questions. Suddenly, apple doesn't just fall on the earth because Newton said so. You want to know no more. And that's the quality of Saturn in Pisces. Because after these 3.5 years, which we already dispatched fully, we will come out into a new cycle. And that means slate completely wiped out, clean. We will begin completely, jointly, as a whole human race, do something together. Of course, it sounds better, it's kind of like, no, it doesn't mean that there will be no tyranny, there will be no wars, there will be no. Of course, it cannot be just nullified. No, a lot of stuff that plays itself out will continue playing itself out. But whatever the chance there is to shift the gears and the attention and the priorities would be given. And it is given within this 3.5 year time. Let's pause here and back to the 18 years. And the 18 years here represents individual karma. Societal state of affairs, but individual karma. Because in Vedic astrology, this is what it's referred to as karmic axis. Karmic axis. You want to know more, please read the book by Kamal Satan called Crisis and Redemption. It's all about Rahu and Ketu. Karmic axis it forms, and it describes all of them through all the lunar houses, through all how each of them are characterized by and what the significance. It's the most, I think, investment worth time of your mind, I would say, in terms of understanding your strengths and limitations, because this is where all the juice is. This is where the karma is truly playing itself out. And everyone is here in that pool. See, that severed head of the giant serpent, because that's what it was originally, until it was severed. And then you had the head, which is Rahu, and the chopped trunk of the, well, not trunk, chopped body of the serpent is Ketu. So this is why it would also be not exaggeration to say is that Rahu always moves throughout life as something headless, because it is the beheaded head. It's the head that has been severed. It doesn't have connection. It just goes somewhere. And balancing itself with this, what karmic axis represents, is the greatest art, greatest skill, greatest task. So now, coming closer to why is it significant for us gathered here, is that the 18-year cycle has dispatched itself already this spring, later than Saturn's move into Pisces. It happened only in May. But only now we will experience the true flavor of what the next karmic axis represents, which, by the way, is positioned in terms of English language, Aquarius Leo. This is where the new karmic axis is being formed. And so far, we still have been experiencing the outcome and the results of previous 18 years. But now, with the coming lunar eclipse, which is a full lunar eclipse on the 7th of September, whilst we will be still here, right? Hopefully all of us in the same numbers, will herald the first eclipse of this new alignment, of this new karmic axis. What does it mean? It means that we will experience that what this next 18 years is about. But first, of course, we will experience all the limitations, insecurities, doubts, all that what plucks us from behind the scenes and from the obvious plane, what makes us feel here uneasy in our skin, full stop. And that would close, and that alone, what closes the 18-year cycle that all of us have lived prior to this. So just as I said already, that if you cast your eyes back now to where were you in August 28th of 2007, because that's where this particular eclipse took place last time. Exactly. If those of you keep journals will be so easy. If not, just where were you, which country, which travel, which relationship, what agendas. 18 years ago, some of you may be too young to have that in terms of your adult life. But where were you? Your teenage years, maybe with your family, with your parents. What did you feel at that time? What was predominant feeling? Predominant, let's say, emotive states, predominant desires. All this is now coming to a complete and utter closure. So, in fact, utter, that nothing we could even be able to say, hold on a second, I didn't say goodbye properly, because it will be like literally done, because it needs to move into the new cycle. It's like clock, like yours, and then like those big, large Swiss clocks, when they hit the number, it goes like ping. Okay, so it's like ping. It's changed. It's now in the domain of a very different Shakti playing itself out. Very different energy. So that's the significance of our time being here together because it marks the next 18 years in the evolution of the soul of each one of us gathered in this room, as far as the astrology is concerned. And what all of us brought here, what we are here, came with, what we want to increase, what we want to part with, what we want to capitalize on, and everything. This is what this really is about. You see, this is to say that it's not going to be an easy immersion, as much as I would like it to be different. It's not. Because coming to this lunar eclipse is going to hit us all. At what point, I don't know. We don't know. But it will hit each and every one of us in a certain way. In fact, some astrologers say that on the day it might all feel nice and rosy and kind of in this elated, slightly euphoric, because on the day of the eclipse, lunar eclipse, it will feel like, yeah, something like feels, but then in the following day, it's like wake up and smell the coffee. See? And the coffee might be burned, and not your best roast. And you might not even drink coffee or whatever, it's not my cup of tea. I drink it, man. It's brewed for you. It's like, are you serious? Okay. And it could be down to that. But again, not to sort of like make it into this, but I don't think one can be placed anywhere better outside of spiritual setting as an immersion when we go through this kind of like pivotal points as this corridor of eclipses represents, because obviously whenever there is a lunar, there will be a solar eclipse to follow, right? But the lunar one we will experience here together on September 7th, okay? So this, we open up today, September 1st. And I'm not also saying this to kind of like to bring that kind of a grim mood in the room. No. That sometimes knowing that I want to consciously face something that I was avoiding and never had the chance, never had the inclination, maybe not enough discipline or emotional discipline above all else here. This is the opportunity to actually face it in a very, very direct, unapologetic, and sincere, courageous manner. And then, of course, in doing so, we're doing ourselves tremendous service. And hopefully, in that, we're contributing to the overall goodness. I don't want to just, on the first day, start just doing this sort of like, recruiting you into the warriors of peace and trying to create the army to counter the world calamities and take on military complex. It'll be nice, but chances are we need to have, it's a different time. So at least we do work on ourselves. But that being said, I would like to mention that there is possible to take the whole thing down, in an unapologetic, like revolutionary manner, in the most kind of like tearing the fabric entirely. It's all possible. I don't know if we have the guts and the muscle and the nerve yet to do that, but our children would have to do that because we fucked collectively. That's a fact, right? So, and not just in a sort of small kind of peculiar repairable way. No, it's in a repairable way. So this will only be repaired itself through that way it experienced like that, you see? It's never going to be pleasant. But the status of each and every one of us is very important because as they say, and this is now again, as they say, in the last moment, in that final moment, every drop tips the balance. If there is this giant, cosmic, invisible, whatever scale, every soul, whatever worth it has, whatever weight it has value. So this is where it kind of world balances itself out, right? How many sinners in that city? No. How many righteous ones in that city? Will you spare? No. How, like, this is a bargain, see? One way or another, we are better off, simply better off, in our own clear consciousness, to meet this all in our highest capacity. And if we are able to do that, and how can we do that? We can only do that if we are in the capacity to hold these conflicting worlds within ourselves, which all of us are made of. That's pretty much what really metaphysical job is. Sadhana is that. That what supports is that. So, as I said, and I don't have no inclinations, no desire to hop on that kind of high horse, right? And, like, let's pull out the flags and start, like, weaving this. But there is something that can be spoken in a quiet manner. It doesn't need to be, I don't even want to go into the scientific stuff, quite frankly. I don't even want to go into the, but science today says this and that, science. I don't, the more I now kind of look into science, the more that science is just a combination of very skillfully arranged something that in some places feels like holds itself, in other places doesn't. So not everything that's scientifically backed up has stamp of approval. And I'm saying that with a kind of a degree of personal kind of admonition. See? So the science says, what science? What science? Well, at least the earth is not flat. Is not, should we agree on that it's a ball? At least that it's not flat. Despite the growing number of enthusiasts who believe otherwise. But still, like, what does it mean to live on a ball of earth? And what does it mean that there are laws that govern and yet that they are outlived? And then there are other laws that apparently we don't yet know how to live by them, but they are the real laws. So quite not very clear. So there is a possibility that science in itself is faced with the most unprecedented challenges, just as all religious denominations today, religions are faced with unprecedented challenges. How to reconcile it all. So, and with that, there is you and I. See? Right? Like two small fish swimming in a big pond, right? In a big pond. Like, remember? Roger Waters, old stuff. It's from the old rock classics. So, that's why it's important that we understand why we're here, even for those of us seasoned, so we don't take it for granted. Why are we here? See, each time we go to the immersion, there is still this, why am I here? With that full, like, what am I bringing on? What am I bringing on as an offering? What am I prepared to offer? Willing to offer? If I want to believe that this is governed by something greater than the sum total of my beliefs and if there is some remote possibility that there is something profound at work, and what is it asking of me for it to be invoked, for it to rise in its full power and glory, and that which weaved this universe into existence, and therefore it can, as the great weaver, it holds all the threads, each finer than the finest thread of the shatush, whatever, finest. Pashmina shawl, how is it all? How is it all sits together? This shimmering matrix of existence. So if we can touch that during the immersion, that level, if something by the grace of that mother would allow to be sensed, however tangibly, then that cannot be given to a discourse. This is why when I was saying, would not be so fitting to now because you can't teach kundalini. One can teach anything, but cannot teach kundalini. Kundalini can only be experienced. One can only know the goddess within one's own self, as one's own self, eventually. Not in any other way. So therefore, the term Kundalini Yoga is an oxymoron.